I never thought my life could unravel so completely in such a short span of time. And yet, here I am, sitting alone in my apartment, staring at the walls, trying to figure out how I became the villain in my own life. The worst part is, I know exactly how it happened, and I can't escape the truth. I got pregnant while cheating on my husband, and I wasn't sure who the father was. I tried to hide it. I lied. I thought I could control it all. But control, it turns out, was the one thing I never had. Mark and I had been married for 5 years. On paper, our life looked perfect. We had a beautiful apartment, a solid routine, mutual friends, and we were finally at a point in our careers where stability wasn't just a dream. He was kind, dependable, patient to a fault. He loved me with a quiet intensity that made me feel safe, loved, cherished. And yet, somehow that wasn't enough for me. It started subtly, the way most mistakes do. A lingering glance at a coworker, lingering too long in conversations that should have stayed professional. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong, that this was harmless flirting, a little excitement in an otherwise predictable life. But the truth is, I craved validation in ways Mark's steady, reliable love couldn't provide. And before I knew it, the flirtation became lunch dates. Lunch dates became drinks after work, and drinks after work became nights in his apartment that I justified to myself in every possible way. I never thought it would lead to a pregnancy. I wasn't careless, or at least I tried not to be. But life has a cruel way of teaching lessons in the harshest ways possible. One morning, a week after what should have been my period, I noticed the telltale signs: nausea, fatigue, and that weird tingling in my chest that made me feel dizzy and elated at the same time. I bought a test, sat in my bathroom staring at the stick, and watched as the 2 lines appeared, confirming my worst fears and my wildest excitement all at once. I was pregnant. I should have been overjoyed, or at least scared in a rational way. But instead, I was paralyzed. Because the truth was, I had no idea if Mark was the father. I tried to tell myself it was probably him. I wanted it to be him. But the nagging suspicion that it could be Derek, the man I had been seeing for months, clung to my thoughts like a shadow I couldn't shake. And suddenly, the excitement of being pregnant was replaced by a terror I had never known. I debated what to do for days. I considered telling Mark immediately. I thought about telling him everything: the affair, the uncertainty, my guilt. But every time I imagined his face, his hands trembling, his eyes wide in disbelief and hurt, I froze. I couldn't do it. I couldn't crush him like that. So instead, I told a half-truth. I said I was pregnant and assumed he was the father. I hid the affair, buried it so deep that even I had to remind myself not to think about it. At first, Mark was overjoyed. He cried, held my hands, kissed my stomach, and whispered about all the things he wanted to teach our child. He immediately started planning: baby names, nursery colors, weekend shopping trips for tiny clothes. Every day he came home from work beaming, talking about parenting books he'd been reading, making me feel guilty for even considering my secret. And the lies spiraled. I kept track of my doctor visits, made up appointments, pretended to experience cravings and morning sickness, and even faked ultrasound stories. Mark was so invested, so trusting, so in love. And with each passing day, I felt the walls closing in. The thrill of keeping my secret was gone. It had been replaced by crushing anxiety, guilt, and fear. Fear that if the truth came out, I would lose everything: my marriage, my reputation, my family, my sanity. As the weeks turned into months, the pregnancy began to show and the panic escalated. I was careful, but even the smallest slip-up, a lingering comment, a missed detail, made me heart pound. I knew I was skating on thin ice, but I had no idea how fragile everything really was until Mark began talking about names, nursery setups, and parenting classes in ways that made my chest ache with guilt. Then came the day when my entire world came crashing down. Mark had started asking more questions, the kind of questions I couldn't lie about. Did you feel the baby kick? When is your next appointment? What did the doctor say about the heartbeat? Each one felt like a trap. I tried to answer without hesitation, without leaving any gaps. But he was sharp, perceptive, and patient in a way that terrified me. He never accused me outright. At least, not at first. He just observed, noted, and waited. One night, a month before my due date, he came home from work early. He walked into the apartment with a quiet intensity I hadn't seen in years. I was sitting on the couch, absently scrolling on my phone, pretending everything was normal. But Mark doesn't miss much. He sat beside me, took my hand, and looked at me in a way that made my heart stop. "Sarah," he said quietly, "we need to talk." I froze, my throat closing. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in my head, but never like this. Never knowing that he already knew. "I know," he continued, his voice low but steady. "I know about Derek. I know everything." I felt my stomach drop, my chest tighten, my vision blur. "Mark, you're pregnant," he said, cutting me off. "And you don't know who the father is." I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. The words I had kept buried for months spilled out in a rush of sobs, confessions, and shame. I admitted everything. The affair, the lies, the fake doctor appointments, my panic, my fear. I cried and cried while he listened, his expression unreadable, his jaw tight. "You lied to me," he said finally, voice shaking but controlled. "You made me believe something that wasn't real. You made me imagine a future that you were already destroying. You've betrayed me, our family, and yourself." I wanted to vanish. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. But it didn't. I was forced to sit there, confronted by the reality I had created. The next days were a blur. Mark told both our families. My parents were horrified, his family devastated, friends disappeared. The apartment, which had felt like a refuge, became a cage of judgment and isolation. Mark moved out, filing for separation immediately. He took control of the pregnancy decision, insisting on knowing the truth, wanting paternity testing once the baby was born. I was left alone, racked with guilt, watching the life I had been planning dissolve before me. Months passed. The baby was born. Healthy, beautiful, a mix of features that only made me question further who the father really was. Mark, with his quiet dignity, took the lead. He demanded paternity testing, and when it came back, his child, his genes, he breathed a sigh of relief, but there was no forgiveness. He still left. He still walked away. And here's the cruelest part. He's happier now. He moved into a new apartment, dating again, thriving professionally, spending time with our child in a way I can't. Pictures surfaced online. Him smiling, laughing, bonding with the baby, free from the chaos I had caused. Every image is a knife in my chest. I am alone, staring at empty rooms, counting the mistakes that led me here. I think about what I could have done differently. Told the truth, ended the affair, trusted my husband. But it's too late. Every lie I told, every stolen night, every rationalization has become cement in the wall separating me from the life I thought I had. I am the cautionary tale. The woman who almost had it all, who risked everything for a fleeting thrill, and paid the ultimate price. I am the one left in regret, staring at the life that continues without me, wishing I could turn back time, knowing I never will.